Hi, in this video I'm gonna add a few new things and maybe even fix a few bugs. And like before, you can download the source code of the entire project in the description of this video, and also you can download this file. Let me extract it and let's open this up. But if you download the source code, this file is also included in the source code. So you could either download the entire source code or you could just download this file and follow everything I do. And now let's open the battle. I'm starting with that and select all the contents. I have fixed a few bugs in the battle script. So I am going to select everything inside this battle script. And I am going to select it up until here and let's copy it. And now it's been copied. Let me just close it. Now let's go to the client in the scripts. Here it is, battle. I am going to select all of the contents of the battle. And then I am going to remove it and replace it with the code I copied. So that's taking care of the client. Let me save that and let's go to the server project. And here in the scripts, I'm gonna do the same thing in the battle script. Let's select it all. And until here, I'm going to remove it and paste the new code. So right now the goblins are no longer sitting still when there is no resources building. They're just gonna go after the other buildings as well. So let me save that and let's take a look at the client, see if we have any errors. No, we don't. Let's open this up and that is the battle. We copied it. Let me just delete that. And here, as you can see, there are 4 more scripts and I'm just going to drag and drop them to my client. Here in the scripts, I am going to drag and drop all 4 of them here into my scripts folder, and they are only for the client. You don't have to copy and paste them to the server. They are specifically made for the client. So let me also go and delete that. So I am going to start with the loading script. It's basically showing a page with an animation and locks the screen. So you could use that when you want to do an operation that takes time, and during that operation you don't want the user to interact with your UI. And let's go to the sprites folder. I've also added a folder in the part 25 draft folder called loading. It includes a bunch of images. So let me open this up. They are frames of a loading animation. So let me change the picture. And as you can see, if you change the pictures in a certain speed, they are going to show an animation. So let me close that. And here the loading, I am going to drag and drop it into my sprites folder. Of course, you can use any animation you want, but this is something that there is available for you if you want to use it. I'm going to select all of them. And here I am going to choose sprite and click apply. 119 kilobytes is actually a lot. But as I said, you can use your own images. This is just a temporary one. So that's it. Let's go to our hierarchy here in the canvas. I'm going to create a new empty game object. Let's name it loading. And I am going to make it fill its parent. And let's check this to 0. And let's create a UI panel, or maybe even image. Let's go with the panel. This is going to be our elements or background or whatever you want to name it. And I am going to remove the source and maybe change the color to something like this, increase the alpha. Okay, that's good enough. And here I am going to create an image, and this is going to be my icon. And let's go and see where this icon is. I'm going to increase the size a little bit. Let's say maximum is going to be 0.53. This is going to be 47. This is 45 and 55. and let's put this to 0, and let's select one of the loading bars, and here I am going to say preserve aspect, and pretty much that's it for our loading icon. I am going to select my loadings, go to the scripts, attach the loading to this. That is our elements, that is our image, the icon, and this is the list of our sprites, our images of the loading. So I'm going to lock this inspector view, going to sprites, loadings. I am going to select all of them, drag and drop them inside the sprites. And let's unlock this, and that should take care of the loading. And now let's disable the element, and that's it. So from now on, whenever you want to show the loading, you're just gonna, here in the client, let's go somewhere, let's say here in the player, and here in the update actually. Whenever you want to show the loading, you're just going to say loading dot open. That's it, that's all you need to do, and it's gonna show the loading. And whenever you want to close it, you're just gonna call loading.close. That's it, that's all you need to do, and it's gonna take care of everything. Let me just clean that. And let's also take a look at the scripts. This start loading, message box, and loading do have a namespace. So if you encountered any error, either remove the namespace if you don't using the namespace for your other scripts, and if you do use namespace for your other scripts, change the namespace of the loading, message box, and start loading as well to remove any errors. Now let's go to the UI and UI battle. Here let's take a look. In this close method, I am going to add another line saying ready to start is also equals to false. Now that's over. Let's go back and let me first save this game scene. As you might know, all of our assets and all the changes we've made this far exists inside this game scene here in our scenes folder. So I am going to create a new scene, call it start, and let's open this. And for this start scene, camera, I don't even need a skybox, so I can just go to rendering, lighting, and here in the environment I am just gonna remove the skybox as well. So let's save this, and I am going to create a canvas here in the UI canvas. Now I am going to create an image, and this image is going to be background, and let's make this background fill the parent and setting this to 0, 0, 0. So this is the background. So before we go any further, first let's go to the file, build settings, and the index of the game scene is 0. So let's add open scene. So it's gonna add the start scene, but we need to drag and drop it to the start of the build list. So the start scene is going to be index 0 and the game scene is going to be index 1. This way, when you start the application, first the start scene is going to be opened, and after that we can navigate our way to the game scene. So let me close that, and you can now change the image of this background to a cover image or any image you want that represents your game. For now I'm just gonna leave it empty and maybe dim the color a little bit. Now inside this background I'm going to create an image, and this image is going to be representing my loading bar. So let me drag and drop it down here, something like this, maybe 35 and 65, and this is going to be 0.09 and maybe 16, and let me set this values to 0. So that is going to be our loading bar, and let's select it, change the color to black, reduce the transparency, let's say to 150. And this is actually going to be the background of the loading bar. I'm going to duplicate this. This one is going to be the loading bar. So I am going to change the color to maybe something like that. And of course, I am going to increase the transparency. And let's also change the image to blank image that we created in the previous videos. This way, this options is going to be available for us. Now we can change it to filled, and here horizontal, and by changing the fill amount, we can change the progress of the game loading. So let's take a look. We also need an text, so go ahead and create a text. And I am going to drag this text to here. Okay, let's set these to 0. I am going to anchor this to the center. And this is going to be loading. Maybe change the font or whatever you want, even the size of it. So that's it. Now I'm going to select this canvas or any other object. Let's actually select the background, and I'm going to go to the scripts and drag and drop the start loading to here. Now we have this start loading. The progress bar is going to be this. The loading text is going to be text, and the game scene index is 1. As you can see here in the build index, the game has the index of 1. Now that's all for that. Let me close that. And here I am going to create an empty game object, which is going to be message. And this message is going to be fill the parent. Let's set this to 0. And of course I need to create an elements for it, so let's create another empty game object, and let's fill the parent. That's it. Now I am going to create an image as the background, maybe even a panel. Let's name it background, and I am going to change the color to something like this. Maybe set the transparency to 200. Now let's select the message, and here the message box, I am going to attach that to this. We have the elements, we have the background image, and there is this background button. You don't have to assign that, just leave it empty. And here we need to create a layout. So this message box script is gonna provide you an option to show different type of message box. You can define as many message box as you want and just show them whenever you need to. So right now I'm just gonna create a message box to show the connection failed and add a retry button to try again to connect to the server. So to do that, I'm just gonna create a layout. So for every message box you want, you create a layout first, and this layout takes a name. Let's just say connection failure. Of course, this name has no effect on the game. It's just for something you see and understand which layout is this. That's just for show. And you have a panel here with a bunch of text inputs, images and buttons. We only need one text for our layout and one button. The text is just going to show connection failed, please try again, and the button is a try again button. When they press, the game restarts. So we need a panel with a text and button on it. So let's create that. To do that, here inside the elements, I am going to create a, let's say, UI panel. So let's name it layout 0. So this is our layout. I am just gonna reduce the size because we don't want it to be full screen. So maybe something like this, maybe 3070, and here 3070. Let's see how this looks. It doesn't look bad, but maybe if we change this to 60 or maybe 65 and 35, it would be better. I think this is good enough. So this is our message box. Let's create a text for it. That is the text, and I name it message. So it is going to be like that. And let's change this to 0, and of course let's change it to justified, the alignment of the text, and the font size you can change that as well. I think this is good enough. 40 should be good enough. Or you can choose auto size, but auto size is really heavy and might affect the performance of the game if you have a lot of text with auto size checked. So I don't recommend using auto size. And let's create a button. So that is our button. Let's bring it down here. So it's gonna be 60/40. And let's change that, or even maybe let's say 3070, and let's change the text to try again. Okay, that's good enough for now. Let me select that, maybe change the size. Okay, now let's select the message. Now for our layout, so this is the layout index 0. This is the first element in this layout array. We need that 0 actually. So whenever we want to open a message box, all we need to do is to pass the index of the layout, and it's going to open that layout for us. Right now we only have one layout, and the index of this layout is 0. So in the panel we are going to assign that. The texts, I am going to assign this message text, and the buttons, I am going to add this button. So that's it. Now let me just hide these elements of the message. Now let's take a look at this start loading script. So the first thing it does, it's going to call this load game, and then it's going to try to attempt to connect to the server. If the connection is successful, it is going to keep loading it. Otherwise, it is going to show a message box. This is how you show a message. You're gonna say message box.open, just like the loading, but this time this message box takes some arguments. So we're gonna say index 0. The layout was index 0. The second parameter is the transparency of the background. It should be a number between 0 and 1. The higher the number, the darker the background. And the third parameter is whether we can close the message box by clicking on the background. The third parameter is the function that the response is going to be passed to it. The other parameters are going to be arrays of string and images. So the first one is going to be the texts, the second one is going to be buttons, the third one images, and the last one is text of the inputs, if you have any inputs on your layout. But for now we only have a text, which is going to create a new array of strings, and the first string in that array is going to be failed to connect to server. Please check your internet connection and try again. The other array is going to be try again. It is going to change the button text to this. Actually, let's check that here in the elements. If you remember, we did change the text to try again ourselves, but you can just say button and you'll see that this button text is going to be changed. So let me close that. Let's go back. And when you click try again, this function is going to be called. The layout index is going to be passed. If it is 0, then we're gonna load the scene with the index of 0. Well, actually, let's change this to load scene. That is for our first scene. Let's go back to the client and let's go to the game scene. Let me save this scene first. And here in the game scene, let's go to the player. So as you know, player is responsible for the server connection. As you can see here in the player script, in the start, we are going to try to connect to the server. But one thing that you should know, that right now, after we made a few changes on the start scene, whenever the second scene is loaded, the client is already connected to the server. So we don't need that. We do need the receive packet part, but we don't need to do the connect to the server part. So I'm gonna remove that. Let's get down here. And let's collapse some of these functions. And here it is, connection response. First of all, let's go and find connect to server and remove that. And let's get up here. This is the connection response. And I'm gonna rename this to initialize connection. And let me just cut all of that and just paste it inside here. First of all, let me remove those and paste it here. And we also need to remove that boolean. Well, of course, we don't need to do it like this. We could just, let me cut all of that and remove that as well. Let's go back to start. Let me collapse that. Here it is, start. I could just paste it here in the start. And that should take care of that. Let's actually double check a few things. Here I am going to collapse some of these functions. Okay, here we go. Inside this disconnected from server, I'm going to create another function. Let's actually go and copy one from here. I'm gonna copy the one with the message box because I need to use the message box here as well. Let's go to the player and paste it here. So here it is, connection response. I am going to rename this to disconnected, and we don't need that. So whenever you are disconnected, you are going to call that. So let me bring those here, and you're gonna open up a message box. Let me just cut the message box and bring it here. So that's it. Whenever you get disconnected, you're gonna do that. But first of all, we need to call this disconnected. Right now, this is the listener. So whenever you get disconnected from the server, this is going to be called. And one thing I noticed, that this is not on the main thread. So I would just call this functions like this, but it is not going to run it on the main thread. So we need to call this in the main thread. So to do that, as you might have noticed, I've added a thread dispatcher. So to use that, I'm just gonna say thread dispatcher dot instance, and I'm gonna say enqueue, and inside this enqueue I am going to open and close parentheses. I'm gonna say equal that, and I am going to call this connected. So whenever you get disconnected from server, this disconnected is going to be called on the main thread. And we also need a message responded. So let's go ahead and get that from our start loading as well. Let me copy that, paste it here inside the player, and here we need to add the namespace of the scene management using Unity Engine.scene management. You're just gonna have to add it up here using Unity Engine scene management, and that should take care of it. So whenever you click on the try again button, it's just gonna load the scene with the index of 0. But as you know, we created the message box inside the start scene. We also need to create the same message box inside our game scene as well. So let's actually go and copy it from there and bring it here. Let's go to the start scene here in the canvas. I'm just gonna get a copy of the message, go back to the game scene, open the canvas and paste it here. So now we have a message box as well for our game scene. And let's create another layout while we are here. Just gonna duplicate this, name it 01, and let me hide that one. And I'm not gonna make any changes. I'm just gonna leave it like that. I just wanted to keep them separated. So for now, I'm just gonna create another layout here inside the layouts. The first one is the connection failure. Let me collapse those. And I'm going to create another layout. Let's just name it normal message. And this normal message is going to be panel 1. The text for it is going to be the text inside panel 1. The button is going to be the button inside panel 1. And that should take care of that. Let me close this. And if you remember here, we inside the start scene, we didn't add a background button, but here I think we should add a background button. So let me select the background and create a button. I'm gonna just add component button to my image, and that's it. I'm going to assign the value for it. So let's hide the elements and let's go back to the scripts. Here inside the UI battle, in the close, I think I should just add another message box whenever there is no opponent. So let's go ahead here and copy this. And that should take care of that. And also let's bring the message responded. Here we go inside UI battle. Of course, we need to open the message layout 1. And of course, I am going to set this to true. So we can close the message box by clicking on the background. And when the message is responded, we are going to check if the index is 1. If it is 1, I am just going to say message box dot close. And here for the text, first let's do the button. I am going to say the button text is just gonna be OK. And let's select the other text, the message text. There is no target to attack at this moment. Please try again later. So let me start the server and check out what we did. And now let's go and play the client. But first, let's go to the start scene. And then we are going to play the game. So as you saw, the loading was very fast because my device is strong and the scene is not really heavy. So it loaded it very fast. But the point is, it works. So let's go and stop the server while our client is connected. So let me stop the server. As you can see, a message pops up, failed to connect the server. Please check your internet connection and try again. I'm going to hit try again. It is going to show me the same message on the loading because of course the server is off. So let me hit try again. And it keeps showing me this message because the server is off. So let's start the server. Now our server is started. Let's go back to the client and hit try again. It is going to load the game. Now let's go to the battle and check our other error message. Hit search and now let's click next and nothing happened. Well, let's see what is the problem. here in the UI battle we are calling that, but I don't think we should be calling this message box from here. Yes, the problem is we are calling it in the wrong place. Let me cut and let's go here inside no target. We're going to call it from there, and that's it. Also, let's take a look. We have an error in our read integer. So to fix any possible error, let me close the client first, go back to my client scripts here in the player. In the receive packet, we could just put everything inside a try catch. So let's say try catch, and let me just remove that throw, and here let's say debug.log, and I am going to name this ex, and I am going to say ex.message, and I am going to select all the contents of my receive packet. Let's cut them all, and I am going to paste it inside this try. So this way, even if we encounter an error, the game is keep going on. So that's it. Let me play the game again. I'm going to open the start scene, and pay attention, from now on you need to start the game from start scene. If you do it from the game scene, nothing is gonna happen. You might even get an error because the connection is no longer happening inside the game scene. It happens inside the start scene. So to start the game, you need to do it from a start scene. So let me play the game. Let's go to the battle, hit search. I'm going to click next, and as you can see, there is no target to attack at this moment. Please try again. And I can either close panel by clicking OK or click on somewhere here in the background. Let's actually do it by clicking in the background, and that's it. Also, while we are here, let's train some units. I am going to train a couple of these and a couple of that. Well, actually, let's add the giant as well, because why not? So let's go to the canvas. Well, this is the start. Let's go back to the game and open the canvas. Here inside train, I am going to enable elements. Here in the units, viewport content, let me duplicate this. And that is our giant. Let's also change the text to giant. And while we are here, let's create a couple of other units. We could create the healer. I'm actually wondering how this works myself. Let's actually create that and see if we have any errors for the healer. So that's the healer. Let's change the text for it. And let's create another one. Let's do the wizard. So that's our wizard. What else we have? Let me see. We have a dragon. So this is going to be dragon. And let's create one more. Well, let's see this. Okay, I think that's enough. And let's go and find the train panel actually, and assign the goblin, giant, healer, this one, that one, and this one. So that's it for the UI. Let me hide that. But we also need the prefabs for these units, and we need to add them to the battle. Here in the battle units, we need to add the prefabs. Let's drag and drop one of these units. Let's say this one. Go ahead and check this out. Let's name this giant. and change this to giant, maybe assign a different material. So let's create one for the giant. Let's just say giant, and I am going to change it to something brown maybe, and let's assign that. And here inside prefabs units, I am going to create a prefab out of giant. And let's go to the materials. Let's see, we do have blue, so let me assign the blue, change this to wizard, and change this one to wizard. Create a prefab out of this one. Let's name this and change the ID. Let's go to the materials, see what we have for this. Well, let's change it to black and go to the units, make a prefab out of that one. We need healer and dragon. So that's our healer. And let's assign a material, let's say, create one for it. Name it just healer. And let's just do something like that. Let's say that is the healer. So let's say healer, and of course I need to add some to the y-axis, you know, to make it look like it's flying or something. I think that's good enough. 1.2. That's it. This is our healer. Let's create a prefab and let's do it for the dragon as well. So this is a dragon materials, and let's create a material for the dragon. And let's just add a color like that for our dragon. And make a prefab out of this one. And let me delete that. Now let's go to the canvas, select battle and add the new units. Let's say giant, healer, wizard, this one which is having a weird name and I can't pronounce it, and dragon. So that's it, I think. Yep, we have assigned them here as well, so that should do it. Let me save this and play the game. And we have an error. It's hard to get used to it. We need to start the game from the start scene. Let's go to the start scene, play the game. So here we are. Let's go and train some other units. Let's do a giant, a healer. Well, we don't have any resources. Let's say we have for wizard, dragon, that we don't have any resources for those. Well, apparently a healer is too expensive. The same thing for dragon and this one. Well, let's just do it with the giant and wizard and maybe goblins. So I'll wait for them to be trained. Now let's go and start a battle. Here we have the enemy camp. That is the cannon. So let's select a giant and place it here. So the giant is ignoring other buildings and going straight for the cannon. Let's place a wizard, maybe some of these goblins. And just like that, we are winning the battle and we are looting the resources. Now let's go crazy and click surrender. To test the surrender button as well, I am going to click surrender, and that's it. The end panel is going to pop up and I am just gonna click OK. Here we go. Let's check the battle result. 429 frames was called and 2 stars was gained because we destroyed the town hall and we reached 50%, but we didn't reach 100% because I clicked surrender, so we didn't get the 3 stars. So basically the calculations on both server and client are correct, so we don't have any problem there, and I think everything works the way I was expecting so far. So I'm gonna end the video here. I hope you enjoyed it and please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.